Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at the novel Siege of Darkness by R.A. Salvatore. It's the third book in the third series that was written by him in the Forgotten Realms world that stars his character Dritz Do'Urden, which is a major hit. It was written in the 80s and the 90s that I've been going back and rereading for this channel. And I knocked out the first 6 books, well, 5 of them actually, when I went to Israel on vacation. And I knocked out this book in 4 days with about 6 hours. Actually, I read about 3 hours last night with the last 115 pages. So it's probably more like 7 hours. It's a little bit longer. It's about 330 books. And so today we'll do my review of this. As a reminder, I keep my reviews spoiler free, so we won't do that many things. This is a best-selling book, and he has sold 22 best-selling works, so he's somebody who's definitely was well-known. He was my favorite writer after Tolkien. I read this stuff, and I loved it so much that it became my favorite character and my favorite series for a while. And I did a deep dive into all of his things for other things. As every book got published, I would go out and write another one. So now he's 9 books in. I'm giving this book a 7+ out of 10 for you folks. And so he was the second book in the Forgotten Realms book series. And back then TSR did this weird thing where a lot of their characters and central concepts like worlds like Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms had their first book series that were kicked off by brand new writers like Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman for Dragonlance that were best-selling. And I read those 6 novels. And then I turned to the Forgotten Realms stuff and said, well, I like the Dragonlance stuff. Do I like this stuff? And then I read the first novel that was Darkwalker Moonshade. It had been published recently by Douglas Niles, a brand new writer. And this was the second, and The Crystal Shard, which I just went back and reread and reviewed for you folks by Salvatore, was his first novel that he had ever written. And I knocked out those 2 really. And then I read a bunch more novels. And I continue to be very loyal to the Dritz Do'Urden stuff over time. Now, this is the main character of its era. You know, it's the huge hit of heroic fantasy. It's the big character, Dritz Do'Urden. He is a ranger, our major point of view character. Although there's a lot of other characters in the cast of them. But he is our main character, main point of view character, and he's a ranger. He's from an evil race of characters called the Drow, and who live underground. And he's from a city called Menzo Branson, which will become a key place starting in book 4, then continuing forward with a lot of its culture and characters continuing to be major characters moving forwards. Starting with book 4 is the beginning of a prelude series for you folks. But he's a good guy from this evil race, and so he's constantly like this brooding, dark. He's moved above ground, which is a big change for him. That his people just don't do that. They're just not designed for living above ground in the starry sky, and dealing with the light of the sun, where they have, they've evolved to have where regular light is very, very painful for them, right? Because you would just naturally, so forth. So, he's flung himself from his people. He's punishing himself, right? In order to, and so you have this brooding dark, but he's a ranger. He can hunt you down. He can track you down. He can slip around unseen. He can move silently, right? And these sorts of things. So he's a ranger too. So I think one of the reasons why Dritz Do'Urden was so successful, why he was in so many different things, following up. Even video games that were set in the Forgotten Realms world, like the Baldur's Gate video game, you actually encounter Dritz Do'Urden fighting some bad guys for you to join his fight. And so that happens too. So his character is a big character. I think one of the main reasons for that is because he's a combination of 2 major characters from their generations. Aragorn, the ranger, the good ranger, from the Lord of the Rings series by Tolkien, and then Michael Moorcock's is Elric, who was also born of an evil race of characters called the Melniboneans. He was the prince of them and their ruler, and he has pangs of conscience, so he leaves his people behind in solitude. So Elric and Aragorn soon be sort of combined to make the Dritz Do'Urden character. So I think that's where some of the major popularity comes from comes from those two characters. Anyway, so what's happening in this book is basically you're getting it, and you can get it from the title. In the third book in the third trilogy series, by this starts featuring our characters, is that the central city of Menzoberranzan is launching an attack against the central home of our good guys called Mithril Hall, which is an underground dwarven kingdom that's been found in previous novels, restored in previous novels, and been under trouble in previous novels, but it will never be under trouble as big as it will be in this. So you're going to have this novel then is the siege of darkness, literally, of the Dark Elves launching an attack on the dwarves in Mithril Hall. And that's basically sort of the key concept. So there's a lot of military battles, there's a lot of combat scenes, and so forth. So this has much more, it's less of a heroic fantasy and just more of like a war fantasy, if you will, than the previous novels were. So that's a whole lot of fun. So the first three novels were sort of more. The first novel was more centered on Wolfgar the Barbarian, a key character, and Tristordan was the secondary character. But then after that, they started to pick him up more and more, and they did an entire trilogy about his background to follow. That's the second trilogy. That are preludes that create a lot of the background of the character. Now moving forward, more starting with the next book, Book 7, the Legacy, the first book in the next series. It brings together the characters from the two, and now just continues those characters moving forward. So in this book we have tons of characters. More ones are introduced, but even minor characters from book 4 are like somebody who Dritz went into the war college with in his school, and was somebody that he would occasionally fight with. He's a major character in book 9, right, and from book 4. So all these characters are continuing to be a key part of this story. Again, you can knock it out pretty quickly. It took me 7 hours and 4 days for me to go back and knock it out. So it's pretty quick for me to go back and reread it for this channel. Again, my channel is named The Worst Thing About New Books because it's a quote from an 18th century French philosopher named Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about new books is that they keep us from reading the old ones. So I like to read a lot of old ones. I read a lot of classics that I've read for this channel, or older books that have been published a long time ago, and books that were originally published in the 80s and the 90s, like this series started out with, and then was big hits and continued having lots of best-selling stuff, is definitely decades ago, right? So it's an older book, right? A lot of folks just aren't going back and reading these books, right? And so forth. So I like to go back and reread them. I also I think there's value in being like a 45-year-old guy and saying, okay, what do I think about this stuff, right? And so forth. So this is pretty common in my channel, but I've done things like H.G. Wells' short stories, and so forth, that are rarely read because he's just really considered more of a novelist by modern writer, sci-fi fans, and those sorts of things for this channel. So there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read Siege of Darkness? Did you think it was a 7+ out of 10? Would you like to talk about it more in the spoilers below? Let's do so. Or you want to talk about the ending, talk about some of the things, just give it spoiler tag, and let's talk. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel encouraged to hit that subscribe button. There should be a lot more of these to follow. And then I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.